Everyone remembers the moment BMW ruined the M5. Before the car had even reached dealerships, thousands of enthusiasts were already calling it a betrayal. Forums exploded with criticism, magazine headlines questioned BMW's decision, and longtime fans insisted the legendary sports sedan had lost its soul forever. The reason? For the first time in its history, the BMW M5 was no longer exclusively rear-wheel drive. To many people, that single change meant the end of an icon that had spent more than 3 decades defining what a driver's sedan should be. But here's the interesting part, almost everyone who predicted the death of the M5 changed their opinion the moment they actually drove it. The truth is, the F90 wasn't built because BMW wanted to abandon its heritage. It was built because the world around the M5 had completely changed. By the middle of the 2010s, the horsepower war between Germany's biggest manufacturers had reached a level nobody could have imagined just a decade earlier. Mercedes-AMG was producing brutally powerful V8 sedans, Audi had perfected Quattro into one of the fastest all-weather performance systems on the planet, and every new generation of sports sedans was becoming quicker, smarter, and more technologically advanced. BMW engineers faced a problem unlike anything they had encountered before. The traditional rear-wheel drive formula that had defined every previous M5 was beginning to reach its physical limits. With more than 600 horsepower available from modern twin-turbocharged engines, sending all that power to just the rear wheels no longer delivered the balance, consistency, or confidence expected from a flagship performance sedan. The easy solution would have been to follow Audi and build a permanent all-wheel drive car. But that wasn't acceptable to BMW's M division. They knew exactly what enthusiasts loved about the M5, and they had no intention of turning it into another ordinary all-wheel drive sedan. Instead, they spent years developing something entirely new, a system capable of giving drivers the best of both worlds. It would maximize traction when chasing lap times or launching from a standstill, yet with a single press of a button, it could disconnect the front axle entirely and transform the car back into a pure rear-wheel drive machine. Looking back today, it's easy to forget just how revolutionary that idea really was. The engineers weren't trying to replace the character of the M5, they were trying to preserve it while solving a problem that simply didn't exist 20 years earlier. Personally, I think that's one of the biggest reasons the F90 became so respected. It didn't ignore tradition, it adapted it. Beneath the hood sat BMW's latest evolution of the legendary S63 engine, a 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged V8 producing 600 horsepower in standard form and even more in the competition version. Combined with the new xDrive system and a lightning-fast 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, the F90 launched from 0 to 60 in just over 3 seconds, performance that only a few years earlier had belonged exclusively to million-dollar supercars. Yet despite those astonishing numbers, BMW refused to let the M5 become just another straight-line monster. Engineers reinforced the chassis, redesigned the suspension, improved weight distribution, sharpened steering response, and tuned every system to ensure that the car still felt unmistakably like an M5 the moment the road began to twist. Visually, BMW followed the same philosophy that had made previous generations so iconic. There were no exaggerated wings, oversized vents, or flashy styling tricks. Slightly wider fenders, larger air intakes, quad exhaust tips, subtle M mirrors, and carefully sculpted bodywork hinted at the car's extraordinary capabilities without shouting for attention. To most people, it still looked like an elegant executive sedan. But enthusiasts immediately understood they were looking at something far more serious. The myth that BMW had destroyed the M5 spread quickly across the automotive world, but reality would soon prove something very different. The F90 wasn't the end of the legend, it was about to become one of the fastest, most capable, and most controversial M cars BMW had ever created. The biggest surprise wasn't that the BMW M5 F90 became fast. Everyone expected that. The real surprise was how completely it shattered every expectation people had about what a four-door sedan could actually do. Within weeks of its release, independent journalists around the world began publishing numbers that almost seemed impossible. 0 to 60 in just over 3 seconds. Quarter-mile times that embarrassed Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and McLarens, costing 2 or even 3 times as much. On paper, it was still a luxury business sedan with heated seats, a spacious trunk, and room for 5 adults. But on the road, it behaved like something that had completely rewritten the rules of high-performance cars. Personally, I think the F90 M5 marked the moment when the line between supercar and sports sedan almost disappeared. It wasn't simply fast for a sedan, it was fast, period. At the heart of this transformation was the S63 V44 T4, a heavily revised 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged V8 producing 600 horsepower and 553 lb-ft of torque in the standard M5, while the competition version increased output to 617 horsepower and featured sharper chassis tuning, revised suspension geometry, and an even more aggressive exhaust note. Unlike naturally aspirated M engines of the past that demanded high revs, the S63 delivered enormous torque almost instantly, making the car feel relentlessly powerful regardless of speed. Overtaking traffic became effortless, autobahn cruising felt almost relaxed, and launching from a standstill was unlike anything previous M5 owners had ever experienced. But horsepower alone never made an M car special. BMW engineers understood that if the steering felt artificial or the chassis lost its balance, the entire project would fail. That's why the F90 received a completely reworked suspension, active M differential, adaptive dampers, reinforced chassis components, and a sophisticated driving mode system allowing drivers to tailor nearly every aspect of the car. What made the xDrive system so impressive wasn't simply its grip, it was how intelligently it worked. Under normal driving, it prioritized the rear axle, preserving the playful handling that M cars had always been known for. When additional traction was needed, power flowed seamlessly to the front wheels without making the car feel disconnected. And for experienced drivers who wanted the traditional M5 experience, selecting 2WD mode completely disengaged the front axle, returning the car to pure rear-wheel drive with stability control disabled. Very few manufacturers would have trusted customers with that much freedom, but BMW believed an M5 should always reward skill rather than hide it. Of course, no performance car reaches legendary status without attracting an enormous tuning community, and the F90 quickly became one of the most modified modern BMWs ever built. Thanks to the strength of the S63 engine and its twin-turbocharged design, relatively simple ECU tuning could unlock astonishing gains. Stage 1 software alone often pushed the car beyond 700 horsepower while retaining excellent drivability. Add upgraded downpipes, intake systems, and ethanol fuel, and many owners were approaching or exceeding 800 horsepower. Builders such as Manhart Performance, G-Power, AC Schnitzer, Event Uri, and Dollar created packages producing well over 900 horsepower, while some extreme drag builds crossed the 4-digit horsepower mark. Watching what appeared to be an ordinary BMW sedan outrun purpose-built supercars became one of the defining images of modern automotive culture. Yet despite all its strengths, the F90 wasn't perfect. The complexity that made it so capable also meant ownership could become expensive once the warranty expired. The twin-turbo V8 generated enormous heat, making regular maintenance essential. Oil changes, cooling systems, spark plugs, ignition coils, and transmission servicing became even more important on tuned examples. Hard launches placed significant stress on driveline components, and aggressive modifications often shortened the lifespan of expensive parts. But that's true of almost every modern high-performance machine. Owners who respected the maintenance schedule generally discovered that the F90 remained remarkably dependable considering its incredible performance. Looking back today, one thing becomes very clear. The F90 M5 didn't replace the personality of previous generations, it evolved it for a completely different era. Instead of chasing nostalgia, BMW built a sedan capable of dominating drag strips, mountain roads, racetracks, and everyday commuting without asking the driver to compromise. It wasn't just another chapter in the M5 story. For many enthusiasts, it became the moment BMW proved that embracing new technology didn't have to mean abandoning the soul of a legend. When the BMW M5 F90 was first revealed, many enthusiasts believed they were witnessing the end of one of the greatest performance sedans ever created. Today, looking back just a few years later, it's remarkable how completely that opinion has changed. The very technology that fans feared the most became one of the car's greatest strengths. BMW didn't destroy the M5, they reinvented it for a new generation of drivers. Personally, I think that's what makes the F90 so important in automotive history. It proved that evolution doesn't always mean losing your identity. Sometimes it means finding a better way to preserve it. The F90 combined explosive supercar performance, everyday practicality, luxurious comfort, and genuine driver involvement in a package that very few manufacturers have managed to replicate. Whether it was dominating drag races, setting incredible lap times, or simply carrying a family in complete comfort, it seemed capable of doing everything without ever feeling out of place. It also became one of the most respected modern tuning platforms, with countless examples producing 700, 800, or even more than 1,000 horsepower while continuing to embarrass some of the fastest cars in the world. But perhaps the most impressive achievement of the F90 wasn't its acceleration or its top speed. It was the fact that, despite embracing new technology, turbocharging, and all-wheel drive, it still managed to deliver the unmistakable feeling that drivers expect from a true BMW M car. That's an incredibly difficult balance to achieve, and it's exactly why so many enthusiasts already consider the F90 one of the greatest M5 generations ever built. Now that the hybrid G90 has taken its place, many fans have started looking back at the F90 with even greater appreciation, seeing it as the final chapter of an era before electrification transformed the M5 forever. Whether history ultimately remembers it as the best M5 or simply one of the greatest, one thing is impossible to deny: it changed the future of BMW M, and it did so by proving that breaking tradition doesn't always weaken a legend. Sometimes, it creates an even greater one. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more stories about the world's most legendary automobiles. Every subscription helps the channel continue creating documentaries like this one. And now I want to hear your opinion. Which BMW M5 would you choose if you could own only one? The raw E39, the screaming V10 powered E60, the twin-turbo F90, or the brand-new hybrid G90? Let me know your choice and the reason behind it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next documentary.